The Mystery of Timothy Caldwell. Evil and Innocent. Disguise. Summer of 1867. In the secluded farming settlement of Pottstown, Missouri. The most sinister medical case in the history of the American Midwest unfolds. At the center is an 8-year-old boy named Timothy Caldwell. To outsiders, he seemed like a charming, well-mannered child. But Dr. Samuel Harding, the only physician in the county, documented in 3 of his diaries observations that challenged all known principles of human nature. Within 6 months, 3 mysterious deaths occurred around the boy, not counting dozens of slaughtered animals. All 11 people who in one way or another crossed paths with Timothy, whose smile never touched his pale blue eyes, died in mysterious accidents. Official records were sealed for a century. But the truth about Timothy Caldwell revealed a dark side that makes us question our notions of childhood innocence. The story begins not with violence, but with loss. Missouri, in 1867, was still healing from the wounds of the Civil War. The Caldwell farm, located 15 miles south of town, had once been prosperous. But after the death of the family head James in the war, and his wife Martha from smallpox, it passed to their son Thomas. Harsh and embittered, he barely managed to cope with debts, when he learned that his brother William had died in captivity, leaving behind a widow and an 8-year-old son, Timothy. Timothy arrived at his uncle and aunt's home with only a small bag and eyes that seemed too old for his face. He was thin, with fair hair and pale skin, spoke little, was incredibly polite, and never complained about hard work or punishment. Adults considered him a model of good manners. Dr. Harding first met Timothy in June 1866. He immediately sensed something was wrong. The boy was impeccably polite, answered questions directly, looked people in the eye. But his gaze was too piercing, as if he studied the doctor with the same clinical interest with which the doctor studied his patients. Neighbors, especially Mrs. Eleanor Patterson, noticed the boy's unusual behavior. He worked in the field like a little machine, tirelessly, never playing, which was unnatural for a child. Her chickens grew restless whenever he approached the fence, as if sensing something in him hidden from humans. The first death occurred in August 1866. 5-year-old Mary Fletcher, the blacksmith's daughter, drowned in a stream where the water barely reached 18 inches. Her body was found by Timothy, who ran to the Fletcher's house pale and agitated. He gave Dr. Harding an incredibly precise description of the place where he found the girl, which seemed strange for a frightened child. Timothy said he was looking for a calf, though it was later found in a completely different place. At the funeral, while everyone mourned, Eleanor Patterson noticed that Timothy's eyes remained dry and observant, as if studying people's reactions to grief. The second death happened 3 weeks later. Old Henry Clarkson, a woodcutter, died falling from Devil's Cliff. Timothy found him again. The boy explained that perhaps Henry had been stung by bees and lost his balance. Dr. Harding, examining the scene, found dead bees, but the hives were intact. It seemed the bees had been deliberately gathered in one place to stage an accident. The third death shattered all illusions of coincidence. In September 1866, 6-year-old Jacob Mills went missing. 4 days later, he was found in an abandoned well, alive but dying of dehydration and hypothermia. Timothy, who had joined the search, led rescuers to the well-hidden spot. He claimed he heard crying. Dr. Harding, inspecting the site, noticed the logs around the well were arranged too neatly to be a random pile. It was clear someone had deliberately thrown the boy in and covered the entrance. During Jacob's final hours, Timothy sat in a corner, supposedly praying. But Harding saw he was not praying. His eyes tracked every movement of the dying boy with scientific, clinical precision. When Jacob died, Timothy's face showed neither grief nor shock, only what Harding could describe as satisfaction. Dr. Harding began compiling a dossier on Timothy. He noticed that throughout the county, livestock deaths from accidents sharply increased. Chickens with twisted necks, pigs with mysterious wounds, horses limping without visible cause. All these incidents occurred on farms near the Caldwells. Eleanor Patterson reported losing 17 chickens, their necks broken with too much precision for predators. During visits to the Caldwells, Harding noticed Timothy closely watching his examinations, asking questions about human anatomy and death. "How do you know when someone is really dead?" he asked. Once, with cold scientific detachment, the boy inquired how long death lasts and what signs indicate it. In November 1866, Dr. Harding, using Thomas Caldwell's injury as an opportunity, spent more time with Timothy. In one conversation, the boy mentioned a cave where he went to be alone and think. Dr. Harding decided to investigate. He found a horrifying collection: animal bones, homemade surgical tools, and, most terrifying, detailed drawings with notes. They depicted rabbits, squirrels, birds, and even larger animals subjected to torture. Next to each drawing were inscriptions. "The subject remained conscious for about 10 minutes after eye removal," read one. But the most chilling discovery were new drawings of people: Mary Fletcher, Henry Clarkson, and Jacob Mills, with precise annotations of how they died. Timothy had not just witnessed their deaths. He had planned them and documented the results. Harding realized he could not go to the police. No one would believe that an 8-year-old child was a cold-blooded killer. He decided to confront Timothy face to face. When the boy heard that the doctor knew everything, he showed neither fear nor surprise. He calmly listened, then said, "You won't tell anyone." When the doctor asked why, Timothy replied, "Because no one will believe you, and because you're curious what I'll do next." The boy was right. He confessed that he had been conducting experiments since the age of 5, starting with insects and moving on to animals. "People are experiments too," he explained. "I wanted to see how they react to the same things as animals. They react almost the same, but they understand better what is happening to them. That makes the process more interesting." The most chilling was his admission that he planned to kill his aunt and uncle. "I need to know what happens if you hurt someone who fully trusts you." Realizing there was no time to waste, Harding told Sheriff William Crawford everything. The sheriff, though doubtful, after seeing the drawings and hearing of the boy's plans, decided to act. The next morning, they devised a plan. Harding would visit the Caldwells under the pretense of examining Thomas, while the sheriff and deputies waited outside. When the doctor arrived, he was met by ominous silence. Timothy came out. "I've been expecting you," he said. Inside, Harding found Thomas and Sarah unconscious, drugged with herbs but alive. Timothy wanted them helpless but living like test subjects. With clinical coldness, he described how he had killed his previous victims, how he drowned Mary, set bees on Henry, lured Jacob into the well, and visited him, bringing just enough water to keep him alive but too weak to survive. When Timothy began preparing for a new experiment on his uncle and aunt, Harding drew his pistol. "Step away from the knives, Timothy," he said, but the boy was unmoved. He stepped closer and listed everyone Harding was trying to protect: his uncle, aunt, himself, and the 3 policemen outside. 6 people. "You have 6 bullets," he said, smiling. Timothy attacked, wounding the doctor. Only the sheriff and his deputies, rushing in, managed to stop him. Timothy was arrested. But as he predicted, no one could believe in his guilt. His drawings and notes were dismissed as the result of childhood trauma. However, his attempt to kill his uncle and aunt, witnessed by 3 policemen, became undeniable proof. In 1867, there was no concept of sociopathy or antisocial disorder, and children were considered innocent by definition. Timothy was sent to the Missouri State Psychiatric Hospital. There he continued his research, convincing the staff that he was remorseful and on the path to recovery. He kept a therapeutic diary, but Dr. Martha Fitzgerald, noticing peculiarities, deciphered it as a complex code. The decoded records showed that he was not repentant at all, but systematically studying the hospital's routine, the staff, and their vulnerabilities in order to prepare for an escape. In 1868, Timothy Caldwell disappeared. The official version: he escaped during a transfer. But Harding was convinced it was the result of a carefully planned, months-long experiment. Dr. Harding spent the rest of his life trying to trace suspicious deaths across the Midwest, in which an already grown Timothy might have been involved. He kept a diary, documenting his observations and reflections on the nature of evil. He concluded that Timothy was not an anomaly, but rather a glimpse of what a human could become when stripped of all moral and emotional restraints. Harding's diaries became the first systematic study of antisocial behavior in children. The case of Timothy Caldwell forced American society to reflect on the nature of evil, on child psychology, and on the idea that innocence may be nothing more than a mask, that if he survived, then somewhere in America walks a man who understands human psychology better than any professional, who can manipulate people with supernatural skill, and who views the rest of humanity as nothing more than subjects for his experiments. The story of Timothy Caldwell is a reminder that evil can wear an innocent face, and our notions of human nature can be dangerously naive. What happened next to Timothy Caldwell? The case of Timothy Caldwell seemed to have ended with his disappearance. But in truth, his story had only just begun. Dr. Harding, unable to make his full conclusions public, devoted the rest of his life to tracking accidents throughout the Midwest. He documented every suspicious case where strange deaths of animals and people coincided with the appearance of a mysterious, extraordinarily polite boy. These observations formed the basis of his unpublished diaries, which became one of the first studies in the world of antisocial behavior in children. In his last diary, written shortly before his death in 1891, Dr. Harding shared a disturbing conclusion. Timothy Caldwell was not an anomaly. He was a harbinger. He represented a type of human being stripped of all moral and emotional constraints. Harding concluded that if Timothy survived and grew into adulthood, he would become one of the most dangerous men in American history. The Caldwell farm was abandoned, and Thomas and Sarah, who had survived the horror, left and lived under assumed names. They never spoke publicly about what had happened, fearing that Timothy might return to finish what he had started. The cave where he conducted his experiments was sealed, but for decades locals avoided it, believing it cursed. Dr. Harding's diaries, handed over to the Missouri Historical Society in 1923, are still kept there, available only to scholars. They make us wonder how much we truly know about the nature of evil and what may hide behind an innocent facade. The case of Timothy Caldwell shows that truth can be far more terrifying than fiction, and history keeps secrets that continue to challenge our understanding of human nature.